Hey guys, welcome back. We're gonna have to go over a couple of more things before we actually start modeling. I'm sorry for blatantly lying to you, but it's just you need to know these things if you want to be modeling around in Maya, and at least have some kind of efficiency incorporated into your modeling workflow. So we're gonna be talking about curves. Curves are important because they allow you. Let me just get rid of some of these menus here. Curves are important because they allow you to, I don't know, they basically define paths, okay? Curves, they have a lot of uses between all sorts of modeling. We're going to talk about NURBS modeling as well because we're going to be talking about curves. So we might as well finish this whole thing up. But for now, we're going to stick to curves. And a curve is essentially a NURBS curve. Anything is a NURBS curve. NURBS stands for non-uniform, radiant, radial, bidirectional, whatever, some mouthful bullshit. Essentially, it's a mathematical representation. It's like vector graphics versus pixel graphics. But we're going to talk about NURBS surfaces and all that a little bit later. What's important here is that we actually understand how to operate with curves and how to use them. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go into Create, and I'm going to go to Curve Tools, and I'm going to pop these off, and then I'm going to go into curves here as well. I'm going to pop them off as well. So now we got two of these popped out. The thing is, you can't actually get to the curve tools with the right mouse button. Like, it's not going to happen. So Shift is going to give you all of these polygon options, because a lot of people use polygons, predominantly polygons. NURBS used to be the older style of modeling. Okay, so no matter what you do, Shift, Alt, like whatever floats your boat, you're not gonna get to it. So you need to either have a shortcut established for the curve tools, like to create a curve, or somehow just pop the menu from your hotbox. Now I'm not using curves that often, so I haven't actually set up anything special for it. But we're gonna go and go through the curve tools first. All right, and we're gonna forget about these curves here for a second. So first and foremost, what is a curve and why is there so many curve tools? They do exactly the same thing. It's just that they work in different ways. Okay, so let's just go and get the curve tool here, and I'm gonna select a couple of points. As you can see, I'm making this weird, like I'm making this curve, but it doesn't look very curly, right? I mean, you'd be thinking, how am I supposed to get a nice looking curve? Thing is, this is not actually the curve that I'm building. This is the control cage, also known as a hull, of the object that we're going to create. So if we click again, you will see that the curve will be calculated, and you'll finally have something to work with. Notice that even though I have these sharp lines here, these sharp drop-offs, the curve will never have such a sharp turn. Like even in a 90 degree, even more than a 90 degree angle, I'm still getting these fairly rounded curvatures. So having these CVs, these are called control vertices. By the way, press enter. These are called control vertices, and this allows you to, well, sort of define the overall path of your object. But the next tool we're going to look into is the EP curve tool, and we can create essentially the same thing if I just follow this object here. There we go. Notice that this time I'm drawing directly the actual points on the curve. You can still get similar results, and some people prefer one versus the other. This one gives you more control. I like the EP curve tool better because at least you know what you're getting, whereas the CV curve tool just it approximates for you. So you can just outline the shape that you want, and you'll get what you need. All right. Next is the pencil curve tool, which allows you to freely freehand this. Let me just go and try to freehand this. As you can see, this is not as accurate. You might find this useful once you have a stylus or something like that, where you can use your pen or some special tool or gadget to actually draw in Maya. But as it is, like the pencil tool, I believe, is the least useful of them all. The last bit is a Bezier curve tool, and that is a little bit different because it requires a lot more precision when you're working with it. Now, it certainly is the most flexible one to work with. So maybe you create a point here, and another point here, another point here. As you can see, I'm not really getting the results that I need because it's just very hard to get it right. The cool thing is you actually can get these very straight edges if you don't have any, you don't define any tangents here, any anchors. The problem with it is that even after you create it, modifying it is also a little bit, rugged. So let's go into the outliner here real quick and take a look at what we've got. So we've got the curves here, 3 curves, and then we've got Bezier 1, which even has a different picture here because it's actually an entirely different tool set in order to modify this. All right, so we're gonna forget about this for a second. We're gonna go into these other curves. Let's go into this curve and select the hull. Now notice that the hull is the same thing as we were defining with the control vertices. You can actually move the thing, but in our case, this is more like an edge loop. You can think of it this way. So if you select the hull, you're essentially selecting the whole thing. Okay, you can still scale it up and down, but you wouldn't really do much. It wouldn't be much difference than just scaling the overall curve. So the hull does not really give you much options here when it comes to curves anyway. It's definitely useful for other jobs. The control vertices is going to give you the points on the hull, and that's a lot more useful because now you can modify them to your liking. Obviously, there are some problems here because it's very hard, even with the control vertices, just to get exactly what you want. Because as you can see, even though I'm moving them, I'm just moving the overall shape, but I'm not really defining anything in particular. Notice that I still have them on this side as well. I can have the control vertices here the same way that I have them here. So I could maybe drag this back in here and drag this out. But the point is that both of these curves are exactly the same, okay? Same goes for the freehand, although the control vertices are a lot closer to the curve because they were defined by freehand. Otherwise, they wouldn't really look like that. But you could still use them around. The problem with them usually is that, well, there's just too many of them, right? I mean, look at this. We've got about 20 of those, and really modifying this curve is going to be a huge pain in the ass just to get it right. So that's a no-go. If you select control vertices here, you're gonna get your Bezier points. You can grab these tangents and maybe move them around. We're gonna go into editing this stuff later. I just wanted to show you that it is possible to modify all 4 of these. Okay. Your next option here is obviously to go into edit points, and these edit points you will recognize them as the ones we were just placing for this second curve. So it's very self-explanatory, fairly simple to understand how to operate with these. And that's pretty much it. The curve point here this is a way to be selecting several points on a curve, but you can't really modify them. It's just a selection way, a way to select things in order to apply functions later down the line. Okay, so now that we understand, now that you know how to be selecting these and how to be editing these, let's go over some of the functions available to you. This is not unlike the mesh edit tools. So like, as you can see here, the edit mesh functions, they're fairly similar in terms of the whole layout thing. All right, so you can, let's say if you had a curve, you could project this curve on a particular mesh, or you can split the mesh with the projected curve as in cut into it, right? So curves definitely have uses in polygon modeling, so don't think that there's no such thing. Make sure to at least know how to operate with these curves, because they will definitely come in handy at some point in your modeling workflow. Okay. Now the lock and unlock length, fairly self-explanatory. Not going to go over that. The bend bit is cool enough that it basically allows you to bend. What a surprise, right? A curve, so you can, if you bend it, and this should give you, well, assuming you select the damn thing, if you bend it in a particular way, obviously these are some old settings that I had, but you don't want to be bending the same curve several times, by the way. If you open the channel box here, one bend is enough. If you keep stacking them, you're going to be getting very weird results, as you can see here. So you don't want to be stacking the bends, okay? Definitely not what you want to be doing. Let me just get this a little bit open. Come on then. There we go. What else do we got here? The curl bit is pretty cool as well. Let me just show it to you on this side. So if you curl it, it's going to give you a similar result, a helix. The first vertex is always going to stay in one place, so your origin is also always going to be here, but then the curl is going to maybe create a helix type deal. Obviously it's going to work better with you know, with a straight line instead of this. Okay. Speaking of straight, you can actually scale the curvature, like as in the curvature between the hull. So if you go into the hull, you can notice that there's a curvature between these points, so you can scale that. Assuming you grab the object, of course. You should scale that. Should allow me to scale it. Yeah. So this is more in line with the hull itself. Okay. So you can scale it up and down. Obviously, there's options for it. You can scale to different factors. So make sure to always have some kind of scaler here, right? Straighten and smooth, fairly straightforward, I'd say. Smoothing smooths your curve, and straighten simply straightens it out. Okay, that obviously it's not ideal, but that's what you'll be getting. As you can see, the curve itself is fairly useful. You can afterwards curl it maybe, but make sure not to be curling, you know, to be curling the same shape several different times, because there will be problems, right? You might get these weird results. So make sure to get your curl settings right the first time around, okay? Now, what else do we have here? Right, the next one is the align bit, which is sort of useful, I suppose. You can basically grab two of these together and you can align them, and now they're attached, and voila. And you got the input of the alignment. You can actually select it, and you know, in any of these inputs, generally you could go into modify, transform tools, and show manipulators for these. But in our case, this is, you know, there's no manipulator for this because there's no really need for them to be existing. Okay, so this is your align tool. What else can we create here? What can we talk about here? There's plenty of options basically on the align tool. You can add points to an already existing curve. So if we wanted to continue this curve, you can add points to it and start adding points, and just select this curve maybe. And then you can see we're starting to add points. And we have a new curve. So that's handy enough. There's an edit curve tool, which I rarely use, but I believe you can actually edit the curve. I mean, what a surprise, right? So you grab the curve and then you can edit these points out. Though I'm not sure why can I not grab this sucker and then I can move it. No, don't know, never used it. Maybe I'm missing out on it, but really, what's the point of using it if in general, once you already have a curve, you'd probably be useful enough to do what you want. Okay. After that, you've got the open and close thing, and it's best demonstrated if we go and create an arch. And if you take a look here, we've got the 3-point circulator arc and the 2.1. The only difference is that the 3.1 allows you to define the apex of your curve, of your arc, whereas the 2-point curve allows you, just creates 2 points, and then you define the radius of your arc. You can even split it up, so if you could create the opposite arc like this. Okay. Anyway, once you create these, you might want to, for example, try to seal them together. So how are you going to close this bit here, right? No matter what you do, you won't be able to close it, even if you decide to create a small arc like this. No matter what you do, this will not close, okay? Even if you click enter, take a look at here. We have a problem. So in order to close it, you just click on open close, and this is going to create its own closure. It works on, you know, many sizes. You can move the seam, for example, you know, the closed seam, you can move it to a particular spot. And the actual options here are pretty cool because you can, you know, open and close it in different ways. So if we open this now again and get the options, you can actually blend the shape, and this is going to give you a much more smoother transition, or you can preserve the original shape once you open it up. But then we already screwed that up because notice in the channel box our inputs keep stacking together. So that's exactly what you do not want to be doing. All right. So don't go just opening and closing at the same time. Just if you have the input, basically do it there. All right. As in with the preserves and the blends, just take a look here, the difference in opening and closing with different settings. Once you got the fillet bit, after that is fairly simple. The fillet essentially does what it says on the tin, fills the space between two curves. But wow, Jesus, this is a huge curve. Let me just delete that. Grab these two curves and fill it around them, and they should be able to create a fillet curve in order for it to exist. Although I don't know why I don't have it, and it should be giving me a fillet between these 2 points. I don't know. I never use this bit. Neither do I use cut and intersect. These essentially means when you got something overlapping, you'll be able to fillet it out. The extend bit is cool, I suppose, to a degree, because you can extend the curve like further. There's obviously settings for it, like you can go and set the options here and maybe get the distance to. Maybe you don't have to extrapolate. Maybe you can have a linear extension type. You can go into 8, right, and you can extend that way. There's several controls here, but really, why would you want to do that if you can just start adding points? The align is pretty cool as well, because attaching and align, they do the same thing but in two different ways. So in our case, let's select these two, and if we align them, the start point will hit the end point of the other curve, as you can see here. Or we can attach them, which will basically attach them with a curve. So these are two different ways to attach curves. Again, this will not close the loop, but then again, we can just click close, and this will close the whole loop. And this will allow you to, maybe create something cool out of there. All right. So there's that. Obviously, you got the inputs. So the cool thing about curves is that whenever you create a curve where you have some kind of a function, your initial curve will be basically giving it an output, and the output will be your final result. So as such, if I grab this curve here now, and I just go into edit points and I start moving this, I'll be getting results recalculated in real life, in real time, because this is a mathematical expression. So if you keep changing the options, you'll be getting different results, as you can see here. Right, the distance between the two changes, and therefore the size of our current final object also changes. You can obviously delete the history after that, and that's going to bake it in. So you basically be locking your changes in, and therefore you will have this curve not hooked up to these two others. But in general, it's very handy to be able to use these options here. Okay, there's some others like project tangent, which requires you a surface, and then you'd have your attached curve going with the surface shape, extrapolating all over it. The fit B spline, I really don't know what that's used for. I think it's just for if you import something, and that's just like if you import it doesn't look right, this will sort of like smooth it out, like get rid of all these jagged edges, because that's what it does, right? I mean, if you take a look here, this is the original, and then if we take a look at the fit B spline, this will remove the jaggedness of this very same spline here. Notice, by the way, that these are hooked up together as well. So if I keep changing them, I will change both of them at the same time. So you keep grabbing outputs, from your objects, and they will eventually stack up to a problem. So you're gonna have to be deleting your history at some point. But I hope you understand how this whole thing works. Obviously, the smooth bit also works on this side, though I'm not sure how exactly, because how is it different from this? I believe this is smoothing the control vertices. But then again, this is a Bezier curve, so that wouldn't really matter much. Maybe smooth like this. Yes, this smooths the CVs. So let's go into our Bezier curve here. I wanted to talk about these settings here on that particular curve. Essentially, you'd be popping this over as well, and all of your options are available here. So if we go into vertex mode, we can take a look here that, well, if we go into control vertex mode, you will notice that we still have our tangents here. But let's say you don't want it to be symmetrical like this. Maybe you want it to be a corner here. So what you go into corner anchor presets, and you create a corner. And this should, sorry, my bad, a Bezier corner, because you want the Bezier stuff. And now you have the option to moving only one side of your curve, right, versus the other. Obviously, if you select this, you can just create the corner bit, and it will remove both of these sides. Okay, and the Bezier regular Bezier is essentially this, right, the one that has both sides enabled. So you might, if you're a Bezier type of guy, it's a funny word, by the way, Bezier. Anyway, if you're that type of guy that uses Beziers or finds them easier to work with, that's definitely an option. The tangent options are fairly cool. You can smooth anchor tangents, smooth it around if you got something very sharp, right? But I never really actually even use this, so maybe you can even them out in this case. In terms of size, you can smooth them around, but in this case, we wouldn't really need to. So yeah, I'm not really sure why would you use this bit, but if you ever want to, these are your options. And, the Bezier curves are available. Rebuild in reverse direction are kind of useless in my opinion. I mean, I never actually had to do that, any of that, so you could rebuild it many times, and this will screw it up for some reason. I'm not sure what that does, but they should rebuild the curve in a different way, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know what this does. Never had to use it. A little bit too fancy for my needs, and I suspect yours too. You can reverse the direction of it, but then again, there is no direction in our case, so there's no point in reversing anything. Notice that we keep stacking our outputs and inputs, so at the end of the day, you want to probably just go and delete the history. In our case, all history, because we don't have any deformers, and now these are not hooked up together anymore. So whatever I do to any of these, they're not going to have any inputs or outputs. Okay, so this is how you lock in your curves. Like I said, just play around with these settings because they're definitely useful. It's just that not all of them are useful. Like for example, if you go into, let's just create another one real quick. I wanted to show you something here. Let's say you wanted to add more points. What you can do is go into your curve point here, and remember we just selected several points and didn't do much because there's nothing you can do with these points unless you use some of the functions, and we insert a knot. So now if we go into our edit points, we have edit points here that we've just added and allows us to control this curve a little bit more, with a little bit more prejudice, right? So you've got loads of options when it comes to these curves and how to operate them. It's just that, oh yeah, by the way, you can also use they don't have to be in the 2D, okay? You can use the third dimension as well to your heart's desire. The offset bit is going to create, I believe, a duplicate of your curve, so that's going to create another, yeah, there you go. So why would you do that? Beyond me, because you can just duplicate it with just select it and Shift D, Control D, and duplicate it. And as you can see, there's your curve, and you can even Shift D after that. Well, assuming you just duplicate like this, they should allow you to Shift D, no? Oh, there we go. Yeah. So anyway, delete all that stuff. Play around with your settings here. The CV hardness is also fairly self-explanatory, I believe. It basically allows you to change the hardness of your control vertex. So if you go into CVs, grab this, and then you can just change the CV hardness to off, or maybe keep the original and then harden it up, and then you should have a better, a more sharper corner. Though I think I screwed something up because I offed it. No? Maybe I need to select it first because I didn't select it. CV hardness. Okay, whatever. Listen, it doesn't really matter because in most cases you won't be using the CVs anyway. Stick to the EP tool. Maybe use some Beziers and play around with those settings just to get used to how to be controlling your your curve. And we're going to talk about the NURBS modeling later down the line in the next video. We're going to go over deformers. You will notice that I have the bonus tools here available, which is fairly neat. I recommend you guys download it, and there's plenty of videos and options explaining what these bonus tools do, but they're handy to have around. So if you got some free time, please go ahead and do that. All right, guys. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.